Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Residents of Evil podcast, episode 27. We have a very special episode today. I am JJ, and I am joined by ROE Team member Tony.
Hey, everyone. How's it going today?
And today we're actually going to be discussing the Resident Evil short film, Resident Evil Arklay, also known as Dave, with the team behind it. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Hey, guys. This is Sean Liebert, the director, producer, writer of Dave.
This is Robert Knorr, associate producer.
I'm Cliff Lorette. I was Key Grip, Lightmaster.
All the things.
Very cool. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's going to be a really fun episode. We're going to kind of cover Resident Evil Arklay, then we're going to move into the Resident Evil news, and then we're just going to discuss the Resident Evil 2 remake because we're all fans and we're all very excited. So with that being said, let's get right into Resident Evil Arklay. You guys kind of want to go and start just kind of the background on how you got into the Resident Evil series and then tie that in with how you guys made a short film based off of it. There's a lot to discuss here. So yeah, how did you kind of start with Resident Evil? How'd you guys become fans?
Wow, that's a very complex question. I mean, I've been a fan, I've been a fan since I was 11 or something when it first came out. Really,
all right.
Even beyond being like a filmmaker of sorts, like I'm a fanboy. Basically, it just comes down to it. Just starting my roots there.
That's really cool.
How it started, really. Yeah, and basically, it's inspired me, influenced me for so long in my life that I felt like it should go further in the medium of film beyond the game canvas, and that's where it went.
I completely agree, and you definitely hit that with Dave. Robert and Cliff, how'd you guys kind of get into the series?
Well, I played the original Resident Evil back. Our cat destroyed Sega Genesis I had, so we got a PlayStation. The first game that my parents bought me back when I was 7 was the first Resident Evil. And at the time, I think I got stuck on the poison gas room where you have to push the statues around. I can't remember what happened in the room, but I remember that something happened and I just couldn't finish the game. But then I got Resident Evil 2 a couple of years later, and I just could not put that game down. And that's really where it kind of hit for me. From Resident Evil 2, did Resident Evil 3, played everyone's favorite Resident Evil Survivor.
Oh, nice.
And then just kind of went down the line. I think the only Resident Evil games I haven't played are Resident Evil Outbreak 2, 3D Mercenaries, and Gaiden.
Oh, nice.
Gaiden's actually the best.
Yeah.
Everybody
The one where Leon bleeds purple blood.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Spoilers.
Leon and Barry together.
Right.
How does it get better?
Yeah, right.
For me, though, as corny as it is, 5 is my favorite. I laughed so hard at the finale at 5.
Yeah,
it stuck me.
It's a great B movie.
Basically, using the word Chris as an insult has now become commonplace between all my friends.
Right.
Very cool.
He's got to be like, Chris.
Well, you can't Chris your way to this one.
No, I'm actually one of those people too who actually really enjoy 5 a lot because of the co-op
game.
Co-op,
is a fantastic co-op game. I mean, the story's dumb. The story's so dumb because
it's hokey.
I played it through Sean a month ago.
Right.
And it's literally they're inside of the secret Tricell base. And they're going down the elevator. And so, of course, in a secret base, they're able to use the elevator just fine. But somehow, when they get to a lower floor that's all of a sudden looking spooky, the elevator stops and then it's access denied. And Chev is just like, why? And it's like, and then a giant crab comes out. And you're like, what? Is the crab? Is the crab a hacker?
Yeah.
It's silly.
It's bonkers.
Yeah. Like one of the other parts I love in that, too, is when he finally rescues Jill and she's like, you have to stop Wesker. Your only chance. And he goes, well, yeah. No, she's like, millions will die. And he goes, well, yeah, but. And I lost it. I could not stop laughing. It's like, well, yeah, but.
It's only millions.
Millions are going to die, but he doesn't care.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. Cliff, how did you get into Resident Evil?
Actually, I got into the first one like these guys. Pretty much right when it came out. I remember I was following it in video game magazines and stuff. And I went to a local game store. My mom took me, and I was 13 at the time. And I remember the guy who worked at the store being like, you do know this game is really scary to my mom. And she's like, were you aware of this? And I was like, yeah, I know exactly what it is. That's why I want it.
Yep.
But yeah, so I jumped in and I loved it, and it terrified me. I got to like the part with the bees in the guest or in the guardhouse rather, and that's where I had to shut it off after my first playthrough. I was like, I've had enough. I don't know why the bees got to me, but yeah, from there it spawned my love of like George Romero films and anything zombie related.
Very cool. So it kind of kicked off your sort of film career.
Pretty much, yeah, in a lot of ways.
That's very interesting. Well, yeah, that's a special thing with Resident Evil is we all share similar stories. We fall in love with it when we're younger, and then it kind of guides our life choices in a way. So you guys a lot of you guys kind of got into film because of it. So
Yeah, it's a big influence for
It
a lot
is,
of people.
Absolutely. Like I think even like amid the originals, the classics, and 4, 5, and 6, and even 7, we're still there playing them, and they're just their own unique experiences, and they still are inspirational.
Oh, definitely. So then, I guess now that's kind of how you guys got into it. But then now we should discuss Resident Evil Arklay. For our listeners who are unaware of what it is, you can look up the trailer right now. You have it on Vimeo. I'll leave a link down in the description. But yeah, if you wanted to give a general idea what Resident Evil Arklay is, or Dave, how would you explain it?
Basically, a brief explanation would be like that it's a proof of concept short film about two detectives who visit the home of one of the detectives' family members, and they passed away. And what they basically go through reveals that there was some sort of eerie, sinister plot that thickens by the end of it. And it starts as a little detective story, but then the twist is that there is a twist to that kind of story. That's basically the little rundown of it.
Yeah, and what I really liked about Dave, because you did a lot with that with a little. It wasn't very long, but you had the mystery, you had the tension, you had the horror, you have basically all the elements of the classic Resident Evil games, that fit perfectly within this. And what I like is it was slow. It slowly unraveled throughout it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just in your face, like the live action Resident Evil movies. It was more, that's why I feel like Resident Evil would serve best as a TV series, because you can kind of add layers to it, and you can add personalities to characters, and it's not just running and shooting zombies. There was actually depth there, and it looked like the main character had some demons, and it really did take the feel of the classic Resident Evil game and put it into one. So what started this project? Like, where did this all begin?
Well, I think that's just a continuation of why we like the video game series so much, and I think as a story, it's really about this conspiracy, this unraveling conspiracy with the Umbrella Corporation, and what these like victims are experiencing and have to go through. And lo and behold, they find this thing that's way bigger than what they've ever expected in their lives, and it's like a global thing. And I think that's what's so fascinating about exploring. Like, I think essentially like what Resident Evil is about is the title. Like it's the biohazard, it's the conspiracy around it. You have your horror and great scary stuff that there is, but I think deeply rooted within it is that conspiracy that's scarier and leaves you wondering, and it's worse than your imagination could actually manifest.
Yeah, it's definitely not something people aren't used to, especially when you're an investigator. You see some crazy shit, but not stuff like this. So I guess this question comes from Nada on Twitter. She asked, what inspired you guys to make a project like this, and what drove you to take the approach that was taken for the series?
Well, I mean, the games are definitely the inspiration, but I think we want to do something different. I was just talking to my friends of mine, like Cliff and Robert and Seth, the co-writer on it, and we just wanted to do something new, reinvigorating, as just a story in itself. It could be separate from the game series or just completely original. I think that's the kind of like exciting nature of going there. It's something that you don't see even within the Resident Evil context, and it's more like a counterpart or a companion piece to the Resident Evil saga, as opposed to just like telling you what the events from the games are about within this new thing. So I think from a new perspective with the detective, it's kind of refreshing because as a fan or even as an original audience member, you get something new about it.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, no, there was when I watched it, and I rewatched it again before this interview, and it was just there was you could tell there was like a lot of detail and thought put into how that went, and it's like, yeah, obviously this takes place in the world of Resident Evil, but it's still somewhat, it's also its own thing as well, and I really respect the work you guys did for that because it was mind blowing for me.
Yeah, thank you. Even within like the horror genre, I think one of the things I wanted to challenge myself is to like bring characters that are believable and grounded within that genre. I think we're saturated in a genre that doesn't really allow characters to really be explored, and it's really about the scare effect and not really about the development. And I think there's something scarier underneath where the monsters can actually be the characters too. They don't actually have to be zombies, but they can be the monsters themselves, and they have like ulterior motives, and I think that's terrifying, and we don't really see that.
This question comes from Stephen Mikkel on Facebook. He says, what were the hardest challenge for you guys for writing the script for Arklay? Like, how was the script writing process? How were there challenges in developing the stories? How far did you guys actually go with writing Resident Evil Arklay?
Well, I think ironically enough, I think writing it wasn't the challenge. I think it was the brainstorming or the conceptual process of like what should we focus the story on, and to tell a story within 10 to 15 minutes about these characters. What was the primary goal? And my goal as a filmmaker, as an artist, is to like really see characters develop, and within a dramatic structure that I think we all know the twist by the end of it. And if you haven't seen it, you should stop right now and watch it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think contextually, it's a drama with characters, but then you have a supernatural element that kind of like shows at the end there. And you don't really, I guess you don't really see that. You see like grounded stuff like David Fincher and Seven and all that, the investigativeness in the films that he makes. But if you kind of like pepper in a new kind of element like the supernatural or something that we haven't seen before in a grounded reality, then I think it's refreshing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Robbie Godoy on YouTube, he says, were any appearances or references going to be made from the game, such as Raccoon City, Police, Stars members, Spencer Mansion, Umbrella, T-Virus? Did you have all this planned out? Like, were you going to have this connect, or were you going to have it kind of be its own side thing that's going to take place within the universe, but not have too many calls back to the main series?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think we also had to like think about, well, we don't really, and here's what a lot of people don't know about Arklay or Resident Evil as a live action. So we don't, as a film piece, this is purely for a pitch.
Okay.
And you kind of need the copyright to make something connected to Resident Evil, for example. So I think that's where the confusion started, where people automatically assumed that we had the rights, and this was something that was just purely pitch in pitch format. So I think the concern a lot of people had was they were wondering, well, how is it going to be connected? How far is it going to be connected and stuff like that? So as a piece, my interest is that I wanted to make something original within the context of that world. And I think if you can blend that and include that within it, if for safety reasons, if it doesn't go through and we can't get the copyright, you can't use like Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield.
Yeah.
And if that's like your focus, your staple within the show, the movie or whatever, it's a no-go. So we just try to be careful about jumping on that. If you may not know, because of the copyright, we weren't able to attach Resident Evil, and that's why it became Dave. So it's a big process. You have to jump through like a lot of legal hoops, and that's something like we attempted to explore with I believe it's Constantine Film, who actually own the live action rights. Capcom doesn't actually have control of the live action movies and so forth.
Oh, we can definitely tell that.
Yeah, so like as you can tell, like it's something that we can't control. So we attempted, and we had a connection. It just didn't work out. And while that's a bummer, I mean, there's still hope. Anything can happen. You know, maybe tomorrow. You know, those come like and say, hey, this is kind of cool. We want to do it, but
Yeah.
we just didn't have that connection there at the time.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of leads into this question from Bullet Hell 2016 on Twitter. He says, "What happened with the project, and how true to the Resident Evil franchise was it going to be, or was it going to be its own personal view on how the story should go?" So, like, what happened? Because you pitched this now. This was a year ago. This is a little over the 1 year anniversary of when you guys actually put this online. Were you in any contacts? Are you still in any contacts? Like, where's the project as of now?
As of now, basically, it's kind of, I wouldn't say dead in the water, but it's just like it's kind of just floating there.
Yeah.
There's not really much else we can do.
Yeah, there's not much else we can do, unfortunately. I know that's like one of the worst things like the fans could hear, but it just comes down to live action rights and so forth. So there's nothing we can really do here from here on out when it comes to the connection to Resident Evil. What we can do is we can make it completely original.
Yeah.
So, and I think when it comes to the subject matter and the themes of it, it's still very universal. When it comes to these ideas, like they don't have to be as great as it is for Resident Evil. I think Resident Evil has been way ahead of its time, like 20, 30 years. Like we're still talking about it today. Like us, we're all inspired by it. But you have a world already with this kind of like advanced scientific knowledge about like DNA manipulation and even all the way through like to artificial intelligence. Like it's very eerie. It's very like Umbrella-esque.
Yep.
And I think even as an original show, you can bring people in who just love this because of how meta it is.
Well, yeah, that just kind of lends to good script writing and, you know, good film direction. Is it can be enjoyed by fans or, you know, people who don't even know or care about the Resident Evil franchise. So yeah, and so that's kind of what you did with Dave by switching it up. It's like you could tell like it felt very much like Resident Evil, but it also was interesting on its own with no connections.
Yeah, no, you guys have done a great job with all that, like making it feel like it's its own thing. But if it ever did take off and Capcom and all this stuff gave the okay for the copyright, you could do that. And I think with what you're saying, you know, like sometimes like the market for a lot of this stuff is oversaturated. I think just from that short pitch right there, there was so much that would captivate anybody. Like everything was done in terms of the camera work, the editing, and how the acting went in this world that you seemingly were able to create just through a short film. I mean, even one of the best parts I think could be really Resident Evil related was when he found that data disc in the grill, and I'm like, that is something totally out of Resident Evil right there.
The Modisc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a Modisc.
Yeah, it was a Modisc. It was very hard to find in 2017. Was it 2016 when we shot it?
Yes,
2015.
What was a Toshiba Modisc that we got? That was like made in early 2000s. I got off eBay.
Yeah,
That's
we found
awesome.
it on eBay.
Yeah, some of that
noticed
stuff.
that.
Some of that stuff ain't cheap either. Like I work with a lot of cosplayers too, and when we try to get like old world stuff or stuff from even like the 70s and 80s, like that stuff goes for like over $100 just for like a radio, for like a John McClane radio diehard type thing. Like it was over $100. So when that was in there, that was like one of the most mind blowing things. It's a small detail to some, but for me, who I played the game since the original as well. I'm glad to meet other people who actually played it at the beginning too. Because usually people say they started at 2, but that little detail in there was just, for me, was just like, whoa.
Well, I'm glad you like that. Yeah, I tried to implement some other Easter eggs in there too. I wish I had the footage, but we actually had a typewriter in the short, like an actual like classic Resident Evil typewriter.
Very cool.
Oh man, yeah, that would have been great in that house that you were in. That would have fit perfectly.
And if people go back and rewatch it, I can tell them where it is. It's actually when Trace, the female detective, walks up to the desk of the dead brother. In that one bookcase behind her, it's actually in there. But the lighting, we just couldn't get the shot correct. But
so it didn't really stand
it's
out.
actually in there. It would have been like a very obvious, blatant representation of it, but it's still awesome. But
That is really cool. I mean, that kind of goes into like, now people pick this trailer apart, and I remember I did a video on it when it first came out too, and they try to find all the Easter eggs, but since you guys made this, are there any other Easter eggs besides the Modisc and the typewriter you guys actually put in this without actually saying, hey, this is Resident Evil?
I think there is one, and there is one kind of major one that some have picked up on.
Yeah.
And it has to do with one of the characters in it.
Okay.
Oh,
Was it
was it
Marvin?
Yep.
Was it Bernard?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
cop at the beginning who was at the
yeah, we got
scene.
that. I was like, that's got to be
Yeah.
Marvin. If they could only put an RPD badge on there, that would be awesome.
Right. I don't at the resolution that we have it in 6K like raw.
Oh.
If you want to zoom in 800%, you'd see Bernard's name tag on there.
Oh, okay, that's cool. All right, I didn't actually see his
Oh,
name,
also
but
there's the
I just thought
cutscene, too.
RPD. That's
the
neat.
one
Okay.
shot that was cut from the kitchen.
The one cutscene. Oh yeah. So
That's the big one.
the bigger one that was actually cut out was a very direct link to Resident Evil. How after Reinhardt has that encounter with Trace, and he like basically loses the battle with her, and she leaves. He's in the kitchen drinking from the faucet, and to his left, he actually finds a document relating to his brother being part of the government, who's I guess officially involved with Bright 21 project, which is actually the direct link to Stars.
Oh,
So that was clear. Yeah, that was very cut out very early on when we couldn't officially, have the Resident Evil connection.
Sucks with-
Yeah.
'cause-
It sucks. I
I had that buddy do go through and make the seal of Raccoon City.
right.
Right.
We actually had a guy who actually went in and made like the actual logo and all the stuff that we just had to cut
oh, how
But,
come you guys had to cut that? Oh, because then
Because of the
linked with-
copyright.
Yeah,
because of the copyright
Yep.
and stuff like that.
But
So it's there. I can.
That's
maybe-
cool. I guess by
But,
not having it so in your face as to what was going on, it did make that short more mysterious, and it kind of. I think it was
Right.
actually better to have the viewer wondering, oh, what's going on here? You know what I mean?
I think if that was one thing that I think we did okay about cutting, it was that, because I think it was just too direct, and it felt like it took away from the tension from the moment with like what Reinhardt was going through emotionally.
Yeah.
For him to just like discover this letter, which I mean for fans it's like something like, okay, so this is how it's connected. So Dave was like part of building the team, the actual Stars team. So, but that was unfortunately cut.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I guess that goes right into Lane Mileski's question. He says, where was the story going? And was it going to meet up with the main story, or was it a Resident Evil Outbreak style story where it was just background to the main story? So I guess you answered that. It was just background to the main story. But did you have plans for where this could have went?
We had ideas. Like I think as a proof of concept, Dave in its entity, it was kind of like it's a one-off. Like it was purely there for pitch. I've always talked to Rob about whether or not we would want to continue from Dave or just have an original 60-minute pilot.
Yeah.
So it comes down to basically how we want to go forward. If we continue with an original series, just like 15-minute little pieces of time, and then connect them all in the bigger scheme of things, we would have a 60-minute thing. But funding is a critical thing,
Yeah.
So it's not something we can do overnight. And I'm so humbled by people's reactions to it, because they think it's legitimately produced by like Netflix, or you would see something in the theater.
Yeah, it
to
was
this kind of
very high
caliber.
quality.
So I really appreciate that, and I'm so blessed to get the reaction from fans. But we're checking with the idea that if we want to do an episode 2, like a Dave episode 2, it would continue on from that story. We would just have to do like a Kickstarter, GoFundMe, or something like that.
That would be fantastic. And now we've discussed on here many times of how we would want to see a TV series handled. We've discussed with the audience, Resident Evil fans, what they want to see. And your short film was actually pretty spot on to what I explained when we were discussing it. And I'm sure a lot of the Resident Evil community would be fully behind seeing a continuation of Dave. And it ties in with Resident Evil, but it's not. You want to avoid copyright and everything. You could still continue that and just change a few things, take a few things out, and I'm sure a lot of people would be really excited for that, including me, especially if it was like a series.
Oh yeah.
So you guys have discussed that, and you've been thinking about it. Any plans for that happening? Any announcements you want to make now, or you guys want to figure it out a little more?
We gotta put him on the spot, dude.
Yeah, put him on the spot. Yeah, we got to reveal a feature, like trilogy cinematic universe. No, there's nothing like right away right now. It just comes down to what we really want to do. But again, like I'm humbled by the reaction, and for me, this was a passion project that I wanted to get out there and prove to a lot of people that Resident Evil can be done correctly.
Yeah. That's
and I'm glad people responded and agreed with that. But I truly believe that it just comes down to what we can do. Because like for me, my day job, like we live in LA, but I'm a video editor. I'm slowly like transitioning into like writing and directing, but that just takes time.
Yeah.
So as you get, as you can tell, coming from like, yes, I executive produced the short as a proof of concept. But believe it or not, that came all from my pocket. So I just wanted to prove something, and I'm glad that people are on board. And if we want to make more, well, we should probably get some help with that.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, like because like I said, like earlier in the video, like what I saw from that short, there is so many possibilities for this to become a thing. And I've always said this, a lot of the videos I've done, fans do it better. I know a lot of people who worked in Hollywood and stuff like that. We've seen a lot what happens when Hollywood gets the rights to video game based movies. They don't always ever go that well. and a lot of fan films that come out like from like really high productions, like on a scale that you guys did. One of the best examples I can think of is Street Fighter Assassin's Fist. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that one.
Actually, I did not see. Cliff, did you see that?
No, I don't think I have actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Street Fighter Assassin's Fist was it actually took them about 5 years to get this project off the ground. They set out like a teaser trailer, and people's reaction to it were like astounding. And then when the actual series it dropped on Machinima, and then it was like it's like a movie series is what it was, and it tells the story of like Ken and Ryu from like kind of like the beginning of their childhood to their training before the events of the original Street Fighter 2 game.
Mm-hmm.
And the way these guys did it, the guys involved, they were like you. They were fans, like you guys are fans of Resident Evil. They had been fans of Street Fighter for years. They were also martial artists themselves, so the fight choreography and the actual acting came from them, and they stuck with it. And Capcom like fully like licensed it and were like, hey, yeah, go for it.
That's great.
So,
it's amazing how inspired people can be, throughout their whole life and just go for it.
There's tons of
there's tons. There's tons of proof of
big
concepts.
fan projects.
Like remember like the Mortal Kombat one that came out like years ago.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, when Michael Jai White was in that.
Yeah, that was a
Eagle
huge
Battle
deal.
and
Yeah.
That was a huge deal.
An Axis or something.
Well, they also, what was the other one that they did? There was another video game series. There was a Final Fight. You guys ever play Final Fight? It's an old Capcom game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They did one called Broken Gear, and that was a fan film that just came out a couple months ago. And the guy they got to play Mike Hagar in it was like spot on. Like the mayor of Metro City, the way it was, like Cody was dark and the fight scenes were great. Again, it's more proof that fans really can do it better than people that control it and just want to make a quick buck.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it comes down to, and this is just my spiel on like the industry and stuff like that. It just comes down to, if you have a creative producer who knows the source material, they would be more than likely open to your creative decisions or your input. I think it's hard because a lot of producers are held down by, well, what's making the big bucks today, kid, and stuff like that. And it's just like, oh, Resident Evil. This is Resident Evil. It makes this much money. Let's get the rights, and make that buck. And that doesn't mean it's just exclusively to Resident Evil. Like there's tons of like victim franchises out there that
Max Payne.
Well.
Oh God, yeah, my good buddy Maki Mak, yeah.
Right.
You're right about that, because like look, you got Max Payne, Assassin's Creed, Alone in the Dark, the House of the Dead movies that they actually made, I think 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah.
And then there's like the Resident Evil movies themselves. I mean, those things grossed a lot of money overseas. That was the thing. Like they kept making money overseas somehow.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to risk, because Tomb Raider, it seems like it would be the perfect kind of action video game movie, and for a lot of reasons it actually does what it's supposed to do, except they're afraid to like transition away from that. That's why they keep making,
Well,
very similar movies over and over.
The first Tomb Raider, I think, did okay.
The first Tomb Raider did okay. It's if you go back and watch it now.
No, I'm not talking about financially successful. I'm just saying, like, in general, when it comes to like when fans watch a video game movie, the majority of people come out kind of,
Well, I think a lot of the time the biggest problem when it comes to a movie based on a video game property is time and the story you want to tell. I think a lot of the time it's like you're trying to translate a 12, 15 or more hour game into at most. I think the longest video game movie I've ever seen is 110 minutes tops.
Yeah,
they don't have the money to make it any longer.
Well, it's not only and that I agree. And then when it comes to adaptations, it's a lot harder than books.
Or then you always retell the same story. They retell the story of the game. And
right. It's that's not how it works, because you can't, as a video game, the experience is you exploring, and you can't do that in a movie, because you can't have like Chris Redfield walking through a mansion for 2.5 hours and that's it.
It'd
like
be
the
boring.
whole point. That's why video games are video games, is because you have to, as a player, become them and experience that journey, as opposed to like character development. That's something totally different.
Yeah, you have the freedom to do that.
Like a Resident Evil movie could not work unless you changed the whole spectrum of their journey.
Like they did.
I mean, like you can change things, obviously. Yeah, you can change things, but I think there's also a way to change it while keeping the source material intact. I think that's like a big thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like dramatically like alter everything, but you would definitely have to change the journey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I love like with they release stills from the Monster Hunter movie, and I'm not like a super huge Monster Hunter fan. I'll play it with my friends when they want me to play with them. I'm terrible at it actually, but it's just like they're showing like guys of this era like with military and guns, and I'm just like, wait a minute, what?
It doesn't fit Monster Hunter.
Yeah, that's definitely not Monster Hunter. At least the one I know.
I haven't seen Monster Hunter footage or the.
It looks like Alone in the Dark.
Oh, it does.
It looks like the same thing where they're just gonna, you know what it is? Transformers.
Oh yeah, it did. It gave me those vibes.
It's quote unquote military task force who just seem, I don't want to say generic, but are ill-equipped for what you think they're gonna fight. It's like a guy with an M4 and an M203 attached to it's gonna take on like a 35-foot tall robot. It's like, that's not how any of this works.
Yeah, that's how it works in Paul W.S. Anderson's universe.
I mean, some producers have to be well aware of what movie they're trying to make. Like Transformers is like, okay, but then for some reason Pacific Rim is completely self-aware and like it's just completely fun.
But that's fine, because they're inside the giant robots instead of trying to punch one.
Yeah, but then it comes to like how it's written and how it's stylized.
Executed.
Like Pacific Rim is just nuts. And I care about character and the emotion of a movie, but Pacific Rim is just pure nonsense, awesome fun.
Yeah.
But then you can't do that with Transformers. Transformers feels totally different. And I think it's because it takes itself too seriously. That's what it is.
Yeah, it takes itself way too seriously. Well, Transformers, other than the fact that it's just Michael Bay trying to write himself the next big explosion, it's Pacific Rim is more about, in a way, when I watched it, I think it's sort of a throwback to classic kaiju movies like Godzilla. It's not exactly like the corny Japanese 80s shows where like it's guys in big suits punching each other. But in a way, it's a little bit reminiscent of that, where it's like it's these two bigger than life monsters meets machine that are like, they're just picking up butts and slamming each other, and it's like
so good.
Collateral damage means nothing. Like, it's just, I'm gonna grab whatever I can and just whack on this monster till it's dead.
I mean, we could be biased because we love Power Rangers.
Hell yeah!
You never. Oh no!
I never got.
You got to cut that out right now.
No, I was going back when I was a kid. The two movies that I saw all the time: Aliens, Die Hard.
Those are good ones.
Those are great.
Those are great too.
Yeah.
Don't try to justify that by like not watching Power Rangers.
I don't know. I never got into like Saturday morning cartoons. There was some anime I watched, but I never got
like
into
Batman animated series.
Of course, Batman animated.
Oh, of course. Like, Power Rangers.
That was good stuff.
So he's redeemed himself a little. I mean,
I lived in Chicago, so it was WGN.
Yeah,
so it was
right.
4 Kids.
Right, the 4 Kids dub.
Yu-Gi-Oh, Cardcaptor Sakura, and Pokemon, and it's an incredible dub.
I'll be honest, like I never did watch Dragon Ball. I didn't watch Dragon Ball.
Neither.
Really?
Yeah.
I only got into Dragon Ball at the Cell Saga, but for me, first anime that got me like invested in it, Tenchi Muyo, hands down.
Oh, that's right. 'Cause that was one of the like the few original like big animes from Toonami.
Like trying to watch the dub today is just a cringe fest, but it's such a great show.
Yeah,
Like,
that voice acting back then wasn't that top notch, like because English dubbing and stuff.
It was all they were winging it. The only people that actually finally got it right was Stephen Blum and Mary Elizabeth Glenn with Cowboy Bebop. But
Oh god, yeah, they nailed that. They're actually a couple now. I think they're married.
yeah, they got married a couple years ago.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when I found that because they came to Anime Boston this past year. I didn't get a chance to meet them. I was so busy doing photo shoots, but my friend was telling me that, and I was like, "Wait, are you serious? That's awesome."
That's great because Mary was the one directing Steven in Cowboy Bebop.
That's right, and their characters were together. Well, like they were together before the beginning of the show and stuff.
Yeah.
Which that show, like I always tell people, I was like, that's like the gateway anime. You start watching Cowboy Bebop, you can get anybody into almost any anime, or at least starting to like it because it's different.
Yeah, I agree.
So
But,
I guess I'm curious what you guys feel about the Resident Evil movies then, compared,
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see where you guys stand. Now that we're talking about movies and stuff, and how you can completely do it right or you can completely do it wrong. What do you guys think?
Man, that's a really loaded question.
That's a really loaded question.
It is a loaded question.
Can we be candid about it? I'm gonna follow Sean's example because I don't want to.
Well,
My opinion is definitely.
I remember the first time I saw it in the theater.
I didn't mind the first one.
Because I was also very young, but I actually came out feeling like quite happy with it. But you grow up.
That's very true.
I still think the first one has merit. I don't think it's as terrible as the other ones, and I think it's because it is scale. It is a small scale.
It's more
It is
contained.
not, how can I write my wife to have more superpowers? And put her in scenes where she should die, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a Mary Sue. It's literally just I'm gonna write my wife a fanfic.
It comes down to the writing. I think it's the biggest issue I have with the first one is you can't develop a character who has amnesia, and the twist is that you figure out who you are. I think that's
A cop out.
Right.
Yeah, it's just not enough. You kind of have to give yourself a confident movie that with a character you should be caring about for 6-7 movies, and you really don't know.
I don't think they really
who she
planned
is
for it to go
outside
that
of
far, but they're like, hey, we're making money, pump out another one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. Like, I feel like the original movie, like, it's definitely not a Resident Evil movie, but you go back and watch. It's one of those ones you can go back and watch once in a while because, like, you can respect like the set designs, the makeup on the zombies or the zombie dogs, and everything. The glass hallway with the lasers, all that stuff. Like, because I always look at the grand scheme of things when I go to watch a movie. I don't just focus on the main thing. I look at like everything.
Yeah, sure. Like that glass hallway with the lasers. That was like
That's the thing.
So memorable.
that's such a good.
Which
That's
actually ended up making it in a Resident Evil game. It was in the Umbrella Chronicles.
It was in 4.
It was in 4.
It was in 4 also.
That's
Leon,
right. Yep, it was in 4 too. Yeah, where Leon did like the super the super black
There was a
backflip.
lot of influence from the movies that started to make their way into the games, like the font of Resident Evil Outbreak. They they started pulling from it. And
the Red Queen,
the lasers. Yeah, they started taking some of that and putting it into the games.
Yeah, so
But I think that's also something to say where Resident Evil 4 started as a Devil May Cry game.
Yeah,
that's right.
That was the original version.
Yeah.
Action oriented. And 4 is still a great game. I think it's like, well, we can stay with the classic and say, well, it's like it's not true horror, but the village part was scary as hell.
Oh yeah.
The thing I think I like the best about 4 is it wasn't necessarily horror, it wasn't necessarily action. It took you on an adventure, and you start off in the village, and you just you get to play and progress with the player, and then when you update the player, you feel attached, and it's just like you're going on an adventure, and the game's got all the systems that make it enjoyable and sort of addicting, and I think that's why that game is still really good. As far as my favorite, the originals are my favorite, but I can see why 4 did so well and why so many people love it.
Yeah, I mean,
it's because Leon fights Captain Crunch, and that's the best part.
This may surprise you, Mr. Kennedy, but I'm only 20
I never
years
thought of that
old.
before.
Thanks, Captain. He says, throwing a spoon across the room and sticking his hand to the wall.
Yeah, proceeds throwing a knife into him. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and like if you don't like, I when I first saw that, when I first played that on the GameCube at launch, I got to that part, I was like, oh, that is sweet, that is awesome, and like he just rips the thing out, and the guy throws it at Leon, and I wasn't quick enough because I was still in awe, like the fact that he threw a knife into that guy's hand,
Yeah.
and I got a knife like right in the throat, and I was like, oh, I'm dead.
Yeah, you just can't take that game seriously. And it goes back to the analogy between Pacific Rim and Transformers. They're totally different. And I think this is the Pacific Rim of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
And it's just adorable. You can't hate Resident Evil 4 for where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're coming back
favorite,
around.
but I do respect
I
it.
think the difference between Resident Evil 4 and for Resident Evil in the Ritter ones is sort of like the difference between Alien and Aliens.
Yes.
Yes.
Good analogy.
That's a good example.
Yeah, it was like one was like sci-fi horror, and then like the other was like sci-fi action horror type deal.
Yeah.
Right.
One is horror, while I say the other one is more of
Well, yeah, it's like the
suspense.
very
and-
first game was about a singular zombie being scary, and then as opposed to Aliens, which is more aliens and then more zombies in Resident 4.
Well, you got to do something. You know, you have to add something. That's why you see this trend in a lot of things. You know, the alien and the aliens. And that's just kind of the way they went. And then now, so you guys kind of gave your thoughts on the movies. What do you feel is the best platform for a Resident Evil, show or movie? Do you think it's a TV series you think would fit it the best, or do you think a movie?
Like the best format, the best.
Yeah, the
medium?
best format.
I think it's hard because obviously we grew up with movies and we want to say yes, movies can still work too.
Yeah.
But the Resident Evil has a huge cast.
It does.
And if you really want to
and a
take
complicated
care,
story.
very complicated, very intricate story, I don't think you can really tell that and justify that in a 2.5 hour film
I agree.
all the way through, thick and thin. I think
agree.
if you want to build characters like Chris and Jill have their own fantastic stories, you really need to show that in a TV show.
Yeah.
And what about these other characters? I mean,
Yeah.
even though they may have died in the first game, you still have to build.
Where's my Resident Evil series where it's Brad running away every single episode?
You have to have a flashback episode of that.
Fucking Brad.
Yeah. So
Getting his teeth
Always
lost in
running.
Nemesis.
yeah, it's a huge cast, and you got to, if you want to do it justice, a TV show is, for me, I believe that it works. And I think I recently read about how like AMC, The Walking Dead, they're doing movies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of
they're
people. I think
building
Breaking Bad is doing one now too.
Yeah, they just announced that.
Yeah,
Mm.
and
That they're gonna give Andrew's character, whose
Mhm.
name I'm blanking on, which is silly because he's the main character. 3 movies.
Andrew Lincoln.
Andrew Lincoln. They're gonna give him
Yeah.
3 movie deals.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah, because like how they just ended his character.
What?
Well, they didn't-
No
Well, they didn't-
spoilers.
well, if people haven't seen it by now, it's been almost 2 weeks. It'll
Don't
probably
spoil
be
it.
3 weeks by the time this.
I have
won't
not seen it. Don't spoil
What
it.
I'm saying is like how they're doing it though. Like I think it was actually a great way to take what they're doing with the series. I think it's going to get the series back on track with it because they're offering crossovers with this. They're talking about like multiple movies, and like you said, Andrew Lincoln's going to have 3 of them. So.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I think they're right about that too. Like Resident Evil fits better as a TV series because like for you, like one of my favorite characters of all time in any kind of form of fiction is the Punisher, and he's had 3 movies with there was Dolph Lundgren in the '80s, Thomas Jane in the early 2000s, and late 2000s it was Ray Stevenson. And while those were good, the Punisher has always been told in a kind of an episodic form. I've always felt, and with his TV show, they nailed that. Especially now with how Castlevania worked. Have you seen like a Resident Evil anime?
Netflix is like killing it.
They really
Oh
can.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
They're
definitely.
Witcher
TV's
now-
come a long
Witcher's
ways.
coming out.
Oh, I'm ready for the
Zelda's in the talks
Is
now
that-
too.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah, the guy who did Castlevania's in the talks
Yep.
for Zelda.
Oh, talked about Zelda, and then it was fake.
Oh, it was fake?
That was years ago, though.
Oh.
No,
last year.
No, this is just recently. This is just recent. Adi, what is his name? Adi Shankar.
Yeah,
or
Adi
whatever?
Shankar.
Yeah. He.
That's pretty cool. Is it
gonna
live
pick up-
action or animated? Or?
I don't know. I think what I heard is going to be live action, but it could end up being animated, which would also be.
I mean,
think
Netflix. If it's
might be
Netflix,
better.
they can probably make a Lord of the Rings kind of Zelda.
How would they do Link though?
Trilogy.
Who would he talk?
You'd have to be mute.
Yeah.
He'd have to like. You'd have to build him as a mute character.
That'd be hard to build a show around that.
Yeah, but then you have all these other characters that are constantly talking around.
You could just have it like the '80s cartoon where it just says "Excuse me, princess" every
Oh my
30
god.
seconds. Well, excuse me.
That's the only time he talks.
Yeah, he just says that.
I'm still holding out for like a really good Uncharted movie.
Oh god,
The
yeah.
Uncharted one.
Did you
always
guys see
thought
the-
I will take it animated.
That would
There's a
work.
fan
If it
film
means
for
making-
Uncharted.
If it means like having Nolan North and all them,
Uncharted
please.
4 is already so good.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like I
it's
don't
such
know
a-
if a movie's gonna make it
It's such
better.
an inverse that most video game movies are terrible. Most games that work as
Mhm.
movies are fantastic.
It needs to, yeah, it can be a movie because like Indiana Jones, we love Indiana Jones, but I think
Hell
you
yeah.
can really like change it up with Uncharted because he's kind of like he's still a thief. He kind of has his like bad things he does in his
He
life,
kills people.
but that's a good conflicting character. You know, it's very dramatic. I like that.
Yeah.
He's
He's a twisted
Sly the-
psychopath.
is it Sly the Raccoon. What it is?
What's that?
Sly the Thief. The
Oh,
character. The,
Oh, yeah.
Sly
meets-
Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah, Sly Cooper meets like Indiana Jones.
Right.
Like it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's-
No, Uncharted would work. I mean,
that.
did you
And-
guys
and
see?
it-
There was a fan film actually that came out this year that blew people's
Yeah.
Yeah, I
minds.
did see that. Yep.
That's
I
great.
thought that was. Other than Nathan Fillion, I think is a little bit past the age to play Nathan Drake.
How old is he?
Yeah, a little.
Oh,
He's like in his
29?
50s,
He always
right?
felt
Or-
like the perfect Nathan Drake to me.
He's late 40s for sure. But
Yeah.
other than that, it was
Well,
great.
people wanted to see it.
because people wanted to see him
Yeah.
as Nathan Drake forever.
Yeah.
It just happens to be 5 years a little bit too late. But
Yeah.
no,
10 years maybe.
maybe 10 years, yeah. But it still worked for what it was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that even just goes more to show that that kind of concept works. As long as you have a strong character-driven adventure, people love it.
Mhm. Absolutely. I
It's
agree.
like Last of Us. Like the story is so good and the game is so incredible.
Yeah.
It's like, do they need to make a movie of that? I mean, I'm sure it could be good.
Right. I think us growing up because we're from like the 90s and I don't dare say 80s, but like we had that dream of like our games should always be a movie.
Yeah.
And to build to that height, that's the highest bar you can get. But man, TV's come a long way too.
TV's
Yeah.
It really has.
huge way.
Yeah, with stuff
Uh,
like Game of
really-
Thrones and everything like that, and
Yeah,
like the
ever
sagas they
since-
tell and the budget that goes into those. It's almost like a Hollywood movie budget, really.
I
So
would say ever since they did, I'd say Walking Dead. came
yeah,
out,
Yeah.
Walking Dead came out a little bit before Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones was the big.
Right.
we
That's
can
my
make
favorite.
A TV series that is movie quality. I mean,
Yeah.
you had some other stuff like the Dune miniseries and all that, like Band of Brothers. Band of Brothers was the first one to do it.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That is a movie quality.
Well, HBO was a huge.
yeah, HBO was a huge pusher of that. Like they're the ones that pioneered that. But
Mhm.
Band of Brothers, from my memory, is the first big series to push.
Big movie, TV
to say
movie.
we can make a
franchise.
TV show the quality of a movie,
Mhm.
and they did it.
And they're still doing it well. Game of Thrones.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to be doing a prequel series to that now too. I'm super excited for.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
So
Naomi
I
Watts.
hope they don't milk it to death.
Naomi Watts, I think, is the lead in that one.
Hmm.
It's kind of cool.
So I guess leading back to Resident Evil Arklay, this actually comes from Jasper No One on YouTube, and this is kind of a good way to wrap this up. But he says, "I believe it can still be made. Why not start a Kickstarter?" So is there anything you guys wanted to say about Resident Evil Arklay? Anything you wanted to add to that? And the fans still want to see it. So I would say from a fan myself. And you guys did a fantastic job, and I would love to see you guys continue this some way, somehow.
ditto.
I mean, I hope so too. I mean, it just comes down to doing a Kickstarter, doing the GoFundMe, and just pressing forward with that. We've been juggling back and forth between, do we want to use our resources for another 15-minute thing, or do we want to do a full-fledged 60-minute? But I guess the benefit of doing it fractured like that is you can sew them up later into a bigger thing.
That's true.
Very true.
And if you look at Dave, it looks like a teaser before the titles come on screen.
Yeah.
So if you were to take Dave as the teaser, episode 2 should be act 1, episode 3 should be act 2. Like it's all structured so that when you put it all together, like 5 episodes, it becomes one big thing.
It's a
I
movie.
think that's,
Yeah. Or,
or like even like I said, the 60-minute pilot, like to really like throw it at executives to be like, this is we already made the pilot, here you go,
Yeah.
let's do the next episode.
and it did really well. And I think by you guys continuing it, one, the fans will be happy to see. The fans will want to back you, but it'll also keep the name out there. And when they see that there's a want and a need for this, that may start getting the discussions going. Over at you said. Constantine Films are the ones who own Resident Evil. That could start the conversations going. So it would be a cool way to make the fans happy, but also get to show that, hey, people want to see this.
Right. I mean, look at Deadpool.
Yeah.
Deadpool's a good example of like throwing something out there and then changing it. Now it's like one of the biggest rated R superhero movies.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah, that took 13 years to make. So I mean,
Yeah.
anything's possible.
So I really hope in some way, somehow, you guys continue this, be it as you keep, doing what you're doing, or you continue with the Kickstarter. I would like to see it continue. So thank you guys very much, though, for doing that. And that, from myself and a bunch of the Resident Evil fans, thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Do you guys have anything else to say about it, or?
I'd love to work with you on a
Yeah, it would be great to continue it.
Oh, they
yeah,
love me.
I think it would be because even outside of whether or not we can make it be a Resident Evil property, because being able to work on a Resident Evil property would be fantastic. But even just the stuff that we've spoken about making it an original show has so much potential to.
Yeah,
if you like Resident Evil, you will like this. Because it has so much. It's.
So many common threads.
I would say it's like a spiritual successor in a way.
Ah, that's a good way
Right.
to put it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rob and I have talked about it thoroughly about, well, if it was original, there are a lot of great incentives. It's like we can potentially have more creative control in that aspect.
So we won't have to worry about Constantine or anything. Like
True.
You'd be able to have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
You'd be able to have all the stuff
Right.
you like about Resident Evil. The only problem is you wouldn't be able to have the names that you recognize.
Sure. Yeah.
Very true.
So that that's another like hoop to jump through is like if Constantine's on board, what's the likelihood of them just being open, have their arms open and let us do whatever we want, like granted they might like Dave, but then they might have more creative control because
So maybe keep
they're
it the way
producing,
it is.
and not to like belittle them as producers, they're doing a fine job producing movies, but it comes down to this is with the cinematic universe that Marvel's doing, it's becoming a producer world as opposed to a director's vision world. So now universes like Marvel, they're becoming episodic in the movie, brand. They're just episodes as opposed to making like singular stories that are it. And I love Marvel movies, don't get me wrong. But it's becoming more of a producer world and less about what the director wants because they just want to make the movie. So that's another hoop that you have to consider as well. Like if we were to do a Resident Evil property, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses of having a brand that you have to rely on too? So
Very true.
Either way, I'm all for it. Whatever works in our favor.
We'll see what the future holds. And to our listeners, too, if this is something you guys want to see, definitely got to be vocal. You got to, try to do whatever you can to, continue seeing this. Use the hashtag #WeWantArklay. But yeah, okay, that'll be it then. Looking forward to seeing more from it in the future. And now we're going to be moving on to Resident Evil news. We got some new Resident Evil news. The first thing actually comes from Engadget. Capcom is bringing a trio of classic Resident Evil games to the Nintendo Switch. The company announced via Twitter that Resident Evil, Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil 4 will soon shamble onto Nintendo's platform. There's no concrete release dates yet, but they'll arrive sometime in 2019. So there's that. We can go around and give our thoughts on Resident Evil 1, 0, and 4 coming to Switch.
Yeah. Well,
Any
Cliff's
Switch
got
owners?
a Switch, so
Yeah, I've got a Switch, and it's funny. I was actually talking to my friend the other day, or actually a couple weeks ago before the announcement was made, and I said, I hope Capcom doesn't bring Resident Evil 4 to the Switch, because if they do, I'm going to have to buy it again for like the 5th time.
Gotcha.
And just waste more money, but I'm definitely gonna pick it up. I'd love to have it on the go. Even though I've played through it many times, and it's still the same experience.
Still fun.
It's just, it's still great.
Resident Evil 4 is Capcom Skyrim.
Pretty much,
it
yeah.
is.
They can milk that forever. Just milk
They
it.
really
really
smart
can.
fridge.
I just want them to just put it on the Vive already.
Yeah.
Because
On the Vive.
I'm basically like, I have a PlayStation,
Jesus.
had Xbox for the longest time, but now I'm like almost all PC, and
Resident Evil 4 on the Vive.
I already have I'm
That's
just
crazy.
saying
That's so
that's-
much, man.
that's
That's intense.
It's a lot
That'd
of
be
work.
awesome.
That's intense.
But-
Look that laser
I'm just-
area. You'll be like looking
But
around all
remember
over.
how it was when we were doing Super Hot?
Oh yeah,
I need to get my workout in.
like sweating profusely at that point.
Just constantly dodging.
I wish they'd bring VR to Resident Evil 7 on PC and not hold it only to PlayStation 4. I just want some
Right.
VR Resident Evil. That'd be cool.
I was talking to Cliff and Robert, coincidentally with the same VR thing. We were talking about like, why don't they should do like a Spencer Estate VR experience where
Yeah.
you could just walk through it. Like, it's just the fanboy in me saying
Kind of
that.
have that.
Well, that was Cryinghorn made
There is
that
a
with the
Resident
RPD
Evil
main
VR
hall,
chat.
and
Oh yeah,
That's
that's true.
Transformation is a
But,
VR chat,
but a legitimate like Capcom,
but it's not like
yeah,
good.
like
Yeah.
starting in the alpha teams like chopper going down, and then you have to run through the woods
An
to the
experience.
village.
Oh, that'd be great.
But it's
that'd be
corny,
amazing.
and so you're punching stuff every time.
Everybody
Picking them
dying.
up and just swinging them around.
Ripping
Throwing,
their
the,
limbs off.
throwing the,
Throwing them in
the
space.
zombie dogs out back into the woods and stuff like that. Yeah.
I want to have it be its remake, except for I grab Brad by the leg and use him as a club and club every single leg.
That would be awesome.
Sooner my head like a mace.
But yeah, going back to the Switch, like I don't own a Switch, and I think that's one of the big things Nintendo is like always like being innovative and doing something more revolutionary than just evolutionary.
Yeah.
And doing mobile stuff is like where it's at. Like I can't imagine the day where like I'm a PlayStation owner, but like having like PlayStation 4 in my hand, you know, on the bus, you know,
That'd
to
be
work.
cool.
That's insane.
That is.
But yeah, the Switch is great.
You know, like the Switch is good. Like it's a great. It's like a lot of people were worried because the Wii U kind of flopped.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I love the Wii U. Like I came to some like some great games I love. Like especially like Bayonetta 2, Smash Brothers continued for that and everything. You know, but you know where it failed, the Switch succeeded because it's doing something that its competition can't do. It's on the go, and they're bringing other franchises onto their thing. Like you can download like a bunch of old King of Fighter games on there, Art of Fighting, Fatal Fury. There's a lot of retro games coming to it, and that's what I love. I was thinking to myself as well before I heard that news. I was like, you know, it's only a matter of time before RE4 makes it onto this damn thing because like they're
bound to
running.
happen.
Yeah, they're running Skyrim and Doom on it now and everything like that. Resident Evil 7 through some kind of like cloud streaming thing or whatever in Japan. So
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time.
Of course.
Yeah, I think it's great that they're bringing it to the Switch. The Switch is proven to be a very popular system. A lot of people love it, and if we can get Resident Evil in more places, great. Especially 1 and 0 remake, I think that's fantastic. We kind of all knew 4 probably would make its way onto there, but I mean that's just great for Switch owners, and it just goes to show that Capcom's still trying to port games over. So hopefully that means we can get an Outbreak port to the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One.
It's Capcom like usually has like their testing phases when they want to see if something is successful or not. Like, you know, we can agree that the remake of the first one led to the remake of the second one, but you know, porting it to Switch and seeing how engaging the sales of that, I think that's a good idea.
I think so too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody. All right, now moving on into our next news here. Resident Evil 2 has no connection to Outbreak, and this comes from Resident Evil Plus. They say, despite the storyline connection and various winks, which are a lot, the remake of Resident Evil 2 will have no link to the Resident Evil Outbreak series, according to the producer. So I don't know if you guys are big Resident Evil Outbreak fans or fans of the lore of the series, but you know, there was some cool little winks and nods in the Resident Evil 2 gameplay and trailer they showed off, but unfortunately it's not gonna link at all, and I guess in a sense it would kind of write off Outbreak. How do you guys feel about that?
It sounds like they're kind of doing a soft reboot.
Yeah.
To say like we might want to go in a different direction. Like I don't know all the details, but like saying like implementing all these different arcs within the narrative and stuff like that. They might have their own. They might already actually have plans to bring Outbreak back. I don't know, but you also have to consider Outbreak as a prequel. So for them to make a remake of 2 and being like, oh wait, well Leon can't do this because in Outbreak this happens here.
Yeah.
I just think it's too much to juggle and it's kind of pointless.
They would be limited. Yeah.
They can always go back and be like, okay, well, in Outbreak remake, if they were to do that, be like, okay, we can't do this now because Resident Evil 2 does this. That's far more easier to brainstorm.
Right.
Don't forget any reference that Outbreak. Sorry, any reference to Resident Evil 2 has to Outbreak is because Resident Evil 2 came out before Outbreak. So it's just a matter of getting rid of any of those extra characters, other than obviously Marvin, who show up. And then it's like with this what Sean was saying, basically it being a soft reboot in a way. There's nothing else to connect it. I mean, it's not like they're going to do that, because in Outbreak they had that weird thing where like the basement was filled with like poison gas in some way, and you use those like neutralizing canisters, which is just like really weird. Just in general, just like why?
Like all the puzzles in that game or in the station don't make much entire sense when it comes to like.
I mean, Resident Evil 2, like the classic Resident Evil 2 police station had a slew of problems architecturally, like the big one being there's no bathroom in this whole building.
That was a design
secondly,
flaw.
For how many cops there are around, there's maybe, I think the only desks are in the West office and the Stars office. So maybe there's like 12 desks in the entire department.
Do their work on the floor.
I think
JJ,
overall,
he just mentioned the bathroom. We've got a friend for life now.
I always complain that there's no bathroom.
It sounds like Capcom is just trying to recanonize what, and go forward with what they want to do.
Yeah,
and I don't think the Outbreak games.
Remake.
A C-boot.
Yeah, they always want to like overwrite something they messed up on.
Yeah, they do
sounds
kind
like
No bathrooms.
yeah, no
convolute
bathrooms.
the lore a little bit. Well, a lot.
I mean, they produced an entire Wesker's report that kind of messed up
That
itself
doesn't make
anyway.
That did.
Yes, it did.
So
It's just him going, damn Chris in that boulder.
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
I mean, yeah, I guess if they're gonna try to do a new story and it makes sense for Resident Evil 2, then I would hope that they wouldn't skip out on some of these things to try to make it canon. But I also hope that maybe we do get a remake or a remaster. It's still fun to play regardless if it matches up or it doesn't match up. I don't think the Resident Evil Outbreak games were ever really considered canon. I think people just kind of fit them in. They could have been. I could be wrong, but if the Resident Evil 2 remake story is going to be better because it's not linked, then I guess I'm for it. I just want a good remake.
Yeah, I mean now's the time to do
exactly.
it. You have online multiplayer's a
Now the
huge
time to bring
deal.
it back.
I would say.
Oh yeah,
I
the
would
way
hope that-
the way of multiplayer works. Holy crap! Yeah, that because we're all getting burnt out by battle royale games now and everything like that. So this would be a different
Resident
kind
Evil
of.
Where's my
Battle
Resident
Royale.
Oh, no, we had that.
We
It's
had
called
the-
Umbrella Corps.
We also had mercenaries. We had
like the
other-
biggest thing that I always said Umbrella Corps is literally they had maybe like a version 2 build that they were using internally, and they have the cop. They're like, okay, send this to producer, and then the intern's like, wait, I already sent this to the plant. It's being shipped, and so it's just the production going, what?
And then the guy who shipped it just
Literally,
got
you're
there with his
crouched
hands up like,
in a game where the crouch speed and the crawl speed are the same as the sprinting speed. You know something messed up somewhere.
they're really well-trained agents.
This man is doing this. He's shimmying like he's trying to get to the bathroom real quick, but he's running at the speed of light. Like,
No, it's
the
true.
camera
Like
is
we
just
played it as a
unbearable.
community a couple months ago, and my God, I mean, like we had fun with
Terrible.
it because it was just so stupid.
It's bonkers. It's just like it's
broken.
crazy.
Yeah.
I would say if Resident Evil 2 remake is successful, and oh god, I hope it is.
Oh, it
Not to
will be.
mention
There's
that-
no
not to
way it
mention
can't be.
How many billions of it? Like, what do they have? Like the 8,000? No, that's for Devil May Cry, the $8,000 jacket.
Ugh.
$250. The $250 typewriter keyboards that they're selling for $1,000. But I'm hoping that if 2 remake is successful, that this could lead on to, and
Well, they've already
I
talked about
vaguely
remakes.
heard rumors of a 3 remake.
Yeah, I think they're
Right.
planning remakes all
But-
over.
If any that's the case, maybe something like an Outbreak remake where they redo it with the new cameras, so it's a little bit more playable online. Also, when you jump between buildings, you're not there mashing the A button, hoping to God a crow doesn't kill you for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it would allow them to link the scenarios a little better too. I mean, the canon within that game was already kind of
Honestly,
broke as it
even-
is.
I would say trying to connect all the canons like that it'd be nice,
Yeah.
but I would shed no tears if Outbreak remake, let's just call it remake,
Yeah,
didn't take place in the RPD or whatever. Like it took place somewhere else. But if it could, they could easily reuse it.
yeah. I don't think they should get ahead of themselves unless you want to do like a Resident Evil elevator, magic elevator
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Raccoon
From
City
Resident
to.
Evil 0, where the
to the
elevator
woods.
goes 8 miles sideways.
they,
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah,
they don't want to write themselves into a corner and be like, "Well, I guess that's it, kids."
or like
I mean,
when you're Rebecca and you go to you literally show up at the lab, which already looks like it's been abandoned for years.
Yeah,
And you
right.
go to the
Thank
door,
you.
And she's like, I don't think you have to go in here. And it's like, Rebecca, how would you possibly know that?
or like the gut instinct or reaction to that.
And then Enrico comes out and he's like, "Hi,
Oh,
No, like
God.
that
When
was
he wanted
something
to
that
get
like
into
always
zero.
find the magic elevator too."
yeah, that blew my mind back in the day. I'm like, wait a minute, how far are we from the city? Like, wait,
Yeah.
what's going on? Like, this is the place from 2 here. What are we dealing with?
What is
That's when
going
somebody
on?
doesn't care.
I
like,
always thought that was hilarious. But I think one of the one games I would actually like to see, I mean, obviously Resident Evil 3 is my favorite Resident Evil of all time. I would love to see a remake. But I kind of, and this is, a lot of people have actually surprisingly not, crucified me for saying this, but I kind of want to see another Mercenaries game, but for the console.
That would be cool.
Because the 3DS version of the Mercenaries that came out a couple of years ago, it had a lot of issues because of its like, whole you can't delete the data. We want to stop piracy and people from reselling it. But, and obviously the only new character that they added was Claire, and they took out a bunch of characters. But it's the idea of it was really good. And I always enjoyed playing that game with my friends. And plus, I still play the Mercenaries to this day on Resident Evil 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of already have that with there's Mercenaries in 6, 5, and Raid Mode in Revelations 2.
That's true.
Which
There's
is
lots
huge.
of them.
Raid Mode in Revelations 2 is gigantic.
Yes. It's way more refined than the first Revelations raid mode.
Yeah. It's just a shame that it looks like it was made for a PSP.
No.
That's
Yes.
true. That's
Or
true.
like an arcade.
Well,
So-
they didn't have the budget because they didn't want to put the money into it because they were afraid. It's because Capcom almost went bankrupt. They like at one point back in 2013 they had like $100 million in the name because they put all of their money into Resident Evil 6. Over 600 people working on that game. They were expecting that game to make billions of dollars. They wanted Call of Duty numbers from a Resident Evil game.
Yeah, that's never gonna
And
happen.
then when it didn't happen, they're like, "Oh shit, now what?"
Yeah, but it was the biggest selling Resident Evil game of all time, surprisingly.
Honestly, no. 5 sold more.
5 did.
Oh,
5 was the
fi-
top
fi-
selling.
5 was the one that sold more?
Yeah,
If
5's
I remember
top
right,
selling.
5 sold more than 6.
Okay, well that makes me happy then.
They made a lot of money on those games.
No, they blew their load on 6.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it
It
did
was a
not
mess.
pan out because it sucked.
Yeah, it did. But it
sucked.
sold
Yeah.
well.
I mean, it sold okay, but of course, this is back when Capcom was like, every game we sell will make $1 trillion. Like the accountants
Yes,
were
I
just-
remember them
the
saying
accountants
that.
they were on LSD. They're like, we can if we just guys, I have an idea. We'll have a giraffe blowing someone on the title screen. $6 billion. Easy.
It'll make us a ton of money.
Their accountants were just lunatics with the amount of money they thought they could make without looking at the history of it and being like, huh, maybe it won't make infinite money. I don't know. I guess I'm not an accountant, but I would assume that infinite money is a real number you can attain.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I guess so. We're kind of all in agreement that it's not too big of a deal if that doesn't connect with Resident Evil Outbreak. But then moving on to our last piece of news, which I think this will be a fun discussion for us, that they actually revealed the original costumes for Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield that are included in the base game as unlockables. Now, a lot of people were very excited to see these classic, iconic outfits return. And a lot of people were also very disappointed at the same time for the fact that there's one thing different. Leon's is almost exactly the same. It is exactly the same, but Claire is missing her black turtleneck t-shirt underneath. So this has people arguing. Some people are saying just be grateful. Other people are saying why remake them if you're not going to remake them exactly. So
Right.
I'm curious, what do you guys think about this fiasco over the clothes?
Well, I think Capcom did it. If they correct me if I'm wrong, but they stated like 2018 is different, the world's different, and people should be wearing appropriate clothing.
Yeah,
in a
when they were
situation
actually
like that?
remaking the outfits for the base game, not the unlockables, but they
Yeah.
did say that they wanted to make them more practical.
Right, but even then, like, why not just keep the same practical Resident Evil 2 Claire outfit?
How is
Anyway?
it less clothes more brand?
So you're saying like why even change
Well,
it?
yeah. Why even change if it's supposed to be just purely for the classical look of it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it doesn't
agree
make
with
much
that
sense.
actually. Yeah.
Because they even cut off her sleeves, her black sleeves.
Yeah, it did look
Right.
different.
Like,
I
why-
noticed right away something
Short
was
sleeve
different
black
about it.
turtleneck, and then like black booty shorts
Mhm.
underneath her pink, like the hot pink
Like, yeah, if your mission is
So it's like, why are you
purely
giving her less clothes?
if your mission is purely to bring it back, just bring back the original look. That's all.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
I don't know.
I mean, to me, it's not necessarily a deal breaker, and I'm really
No.
happy they're bringing them back, and I'm happy that it's in the base game. I think that's fantastic. You know, like I said, Leon's is spot on, and Claire's, for the most part, is spot on. It's not a deal breaker, but I guess if you're going to remake the classics just as the classics, then why change it? You know, they're just separate uniforms that you can use. They're not part of the actual main game, so why not have them be a little out there? So I can see why some people are upset. Like I said, not a deal breaker.
Right.
Looks better than military clear.
I mean, I still
Military
appreciate them. I still appreciate them bringing these costumes to begin with. So.
Same here. Same here.
No, I'm thankful for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Tony?
Honestly, like, I'm just glad I don't have to pay $5.99 for the DLC of those outfits.
Yeah.
I think it's at the end of the day, that's what we can
Well.
all be happy for, that it doesn't cost extra money for it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have a lot of friends who make dynamite Claire Redfield cosplayers. Like, someone live in Germany, one lives up in Canada. I'm going to actually be working with her at Anime New York this month, and they're a little bit more vocal than I am about it. They feel that, like, the reason for it was kind of just like there was no point for them, like, taking away her shirt like that, you know. And I was like, hey, it is what it is. I understand because you girls cosplay and actually look like the character, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a weird decision. Like,
It
it
is a
doesn't
weird
really bother
decision,
me that much and everything, but I can understand why it would bother people. Like I said, I'm just happy I don't have to pay $5.99 DLC.
Yeah, that's true. So we're happy they're bringing them back, but we're all a little bit baffled as to why remove just that one thing. It does look a little different. But that's actually, we haven't really had much news, and Resident Evil 2 Remake is actually coming out very soon. So I'm sure we're going to be getting some stuff here shortly. We'll be getting a lot more news, and we'll be doing another podcast when that news does unravel. A lot of us are looking forward to the Resident Evil 2 Remake demo being playable to everyone, and there's no official news on if we're going to get that or not, but hopefully that comes soon, because it's getting close, guys.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a lot closer to the release.
When they drop the demo, if they drop the demo.
Yeah, funny enough, I was talking to Carcinogen, you know, the speedrun guy, not too long ago.
Yeah.
He was mentioning how, like, for Resident Evil 7 demo, how they were able to take the data, they mined the data from the Resident Evil 7 demo, and they were to, like, understand more for part of the story or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
And that's one reason why they may not, if they do release the demo, it won't be for
so I
PC.
think
They're really.
Yeah, I think they're really, like,
And
trying
so
to
I think,
not leak that.
Yeah.
better
Yeah,
safe than sorry.
That's
It's so
Yes.
close, anyways. It's like 3 months. It's like
It's kind of like
Yeah.
nobody's gonna die. They'll play the demo. In 2
Yeah.
months.
when people
Yeah.
data mine Resident Evil 7 and release all this information. It's like, oh, we're excited, we want to know, we get it, but at the same time, it's like, this is why we can't have nice things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, people will data mine anything, but I think one of the things about Resident Evil 2 Remake that I feel that people said, well, I think they've shown too much, and I would agree, but in a different way. They have shown a lot,
of what
but
we've
I
already seen.
feel it's only like the tip of the iceberg type deal.
Yeah, and that actually leads us into the next discussion here of the show. And Sean, you brought this up, is there's changes to the story, and like what they've showed us, that I believe the same thing as you, Tony, as they showed us stuff we've already seen, be it a little different, but they're going to be adding way more to this game. Now, when you stop and think about Resident Evil 2, it's only like an hour and a half to 2 hour game. First time, maybe 3 hours, but this is a full AAA remake. So much is going to be added. So much is going to be changed. There's so much room for potential here, new story elements. So what do you guys think about, Resident Evil 2 and what we've seen? What do you think about what they're going to be adding? What do you guys think?
Ooh, well, I
It's
mean,
a lot.
From the trailers that we have so far, we not only have a different Chief Irons, and it seems like not only does he look different, but he has a bigger story with Claire and Sherry. And I think with the mayor's daughter, there might be more going on there that they might want to, like, talk more about in the game.
Get into, maybe show a little bit more from the mayor's daughter from the perspective of when maybe she was alive. Maybe some flashbacks.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Right.
And even
Put him in a quick scoped.
and even, like, I don't know, like, even with the boss fight with Birkin, showing that, I think that was a completely new fight Because
It
the only
was.
time you fight
Oh no, totally.
Birkin was down in the
First time you fight Birkin is in front of
the turnstile thing.
No, it's your first time you fight Birkin
It's after
is,
Irons.
Well, it's the A route. Yeah, it's after Irons, but it's when you're about to use all the plugs to open up that door to the sewer.
Yeah.
Right, and then
And that's
he
where
slides
he
off
grabs
the-
the pipe and he's
Maybe-
like, "I'm
maybe-
gonna get you."
maybe they're replicating that part.
Well,
that
that
could be possible.
well that,
That
it,
could
it
be,
does
but then
change up.
They're turning a single
Yeah,
room
they-
into like a massive.
They made a massive different like
but it works better because
underground.
what's it gonna be? You're gonna be like
It's not just
it's
one
like,
room
it's like
of
a
a
tiny
sewer
hallway
system.
versus like a massive.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of worries me about that, though, is in the original game you meet Sherry and she says she's being followed. That gives the player dread. Then you hear this thing following her and she says it's a monster, and it builds up this thing in your head, and then you see it. Whereas in the remake, you meet her and then says, basically, look behind you, whatever, and then he's there. So there's no build up to it. It's just like, oh, there he is. And then Claire's just kind of like, oh, the way she's talking to him, the way she acts after the altercation, it doesn't seem as
To be fair,
posing and threatening as it did in the original, where it's building you up for it.
to be fair, we don't know what happens before that. We
True.
don't know if there's
There's another encounter.
there's an encounter, or you see him, or you more importantly hear him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that environment's so creepy, and I would imagine if you start hearing weird noises or anything like that, it's going to have a lot of tension.
Yeah.
More than the first time you meet Sherry, she's like hiding in the corner of a dark room, and then you're just like, "Ha! Found you, child!" And then you just hear somebody yelling in the background, and she's like, "It's a monster!" And it's like, "Honey, this place is full of goddamn monsters.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to
seriously.
be more
right?
specific."
Right. Yeah, there's just so much to untangle. Like Ada Wong looks different. She's
Yep.
got
Yeah,
it
what's
feels like she has a different
Mhm.
motivation. She looks I could be totally wrong, and me just being subjective here, but like it sounds like she's acting more like a journalist in this one.
Yeah,
She's I think
like-
she's pretending to be an FBI agent.
More of a ruse,
She has to
yeah.
pretend to be somebody, because if nobody who's an actual spy is going to be like, "That's classified." It's like,
Yeah.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Posing.
and to be
She's so
fair,
sassy.
to be
Very
fair,
sassy.
in the classic Resident Evil 2, like the whole point, well, the whole time Leon was just trying to get information out of her, she would just run away. That was pretty much
Yeah,
the gist of it.
Mhm.
So I think they're trying to
Just, Ada, wait.
I think they're
That is-
trying to
nobody listened to
accommodate
me.
that and do something more fleshed out, I think. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
That would make sense. And then we got Robert Kendo too, hasn't been shown. And I feel like the stuff they did show us is stuff we've already known, but I feel like maybe they didn't show us Robert Kendo because they may have added quite a bit to him.
Oh, like
Yeah.
at 1.5 kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard
maybe.
that the beginning of the game, they have a huge opening section before you actually get to the police station with Robert Kent
Right in the
Yeah.
city, yeah.
in the city.
It's short, but it's one of the
But it's
first
still
things you see, so it
non-stop.
leaves a
of
lasting
course.
impression.
Are you talking about the part where you're trying to get away from the trucker that's driving maniacally? in the
No,
beginning?
it's the part where you-
section too. So there's that section where they meet at the gas station, supposedly,
Oh, like that part.
and then the trucker's like, "Watch me crash this thing real quick," and then
Why do you bite me?
the
Yeah.
characters get separated.
Why do you blame me?
Why do you
maniac.
Oh, I guess I better deliver this gas anyway.
Why do I take so long?
Why do
wow.
you do that?
He's so like stressed out with his job. He's like, well, I gotta just still take the gas.
Doesn't matter as long as you just
I'm
bit
on
me.
a 72 right now. I just go to deliver this gas.
Then it shoots to his character later as he's turned into a zombie. He's driving the
Yeah.
semi and he's just looking straight up. Like, where are you looking, dude?
He crashes the truck, gets out, and he's like, "God damn it!
So-
How am I going to deliver this fuel now?"
So that might be that might actually be like a pretty cool like tutorial moment
Yeah.
in the game. Like
Press X to not die.
Yeah,
Press
press
X,
X to
yeah.
jump out of the way.
Press X to pay respects.
it's the only QTE from that
God,
game. And then like
Just-
they start off with really bad like Resident Evil 6 vibes, and then
God.
completely omit it later on.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. But
Yeah, going with what you were saying about them showing too much or not showing too much, I think you're right. There's a lot of room for adding a lot of content that wasn't in the original game, kind of like what they did with the Resident Evil 1 remake, where they added the whole like other section,
Yeah.
with Lisa Trevor and
Then tons and tons of visual.
Yeah, her
All the
cabin,
rooms
the
and-
underground cavern part for
so
her.
many
and
different
stuff.
things that made the experience just totally different when you're playing through it. So
True. Made it
hopefully
interesting
we'll see
again
that.
for new and old fans. So we're gonna probably, we're probably gonna get some new characters that we've never seen before, and they're gonna be implemented into the story, and we're gonna get some expansions on areas we have seen before. So yeah, there's just so much more room now to that, these trailers, I wouldn't let that ruin. I'd watch them. I don't think it's going to ruin your experience at all. And obviously, they're just showing it because there's more to the game.
Sure.
We recently at TGS got some gameplay of the liquors that was shown off. What do you guys think about the new liquors? They're very aggressive. They can kind of jump on the player like the zombies can, where you feel crowded, or you can kind of shoo them off with the defensive items. They're still very they're still a threat, but some people have said that they do kind of feel more like the Resident Evil 5 lickers now, where they're not really as scary as they were in the original, because with the fixed camera angles you can't see them but you can hear them, and they just seemed more menacing. But what do you guys think about the new liquor gameplay?
Less is always more. Like I think the problem with 5 is that when you have, I think it's still fun in 5, but like when you have like a whole room full of them, it kind of like defeats the not only the fear but the anxiety of like dealing with what your surroundings are. With a liquor, it uses more of its surroundings.
Yeah.
It becomes more like of an investigative game point.
Like a mini boss.
It becomes a mini boss, and especially when you're limited with ammo. If you just have a handgun, fighting a liquor, that's terrifying. But if you have a shotgun, then it's like a little bit easier. But
it's the same like when you had the modified shotgun later on in the end game, or like when you get into the lab and you just drowning with grenade rounds.
Like, but by the end of the game, you just carry a shotgun around because you have so much ammo.
Like,
definitely.
When I have this shotgun,
And they've
really knocks me off screen.
Towards the end of the game, they're mutated, so they're stronger, faster, more deadly.
And that's when you hit them with a magnum.
Yeah.
You say, I'm done with this.
Right.
Hell
So I
yeah.
think-
Dome Destroyer.
I'm done with you.
So I think it'll be fun if Capcom makes that part a little bit harder for the audience or for the gamers, and be like, you can only use the handgun here. I don't know. Does she have a grenade launcher at that point? In the game?
Yeah, she did in the gameplay. There was multiple liquors,
Yeah.
and she was using the grenade launcher.
Claire gets the crossbow where the shotgun is in the original as well, but she gets the grenade launcher inside of the Stars room, Stars office.
Yep.
But the grenade launcher is a lot more versatile than the Magnum. But I would say that she gets her power weapon earlier than Leon, because Leon gets the shotgun, but he sticks with the shotgun for I'd say like 20% more of the game till he gets the Magnum.
Yeah, I think.
But even in the new one, there's like attachments for the grenade launcher too, like you put a sight on and all that.
For what I've seen, it looks like you were saying, they could be just another enemy type that's, more of a common encounter than the original game. But I guess it goes down to the new camera angle and everything affecting the gameplay mechanics. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point when it comes to like now you have the over the shoulder. Well, you did have in 5, but I'm really curious to see how the game is handled over the shoulder, just like 5, but you still have that threat,
Right.
and how it fares with
But
different.
it's also a lot darker inside the PlayStation 2.
It is darker.
They look creepy. They look spooky. It seemed like they could go through doors and chase after.
Oh yeah. In the game,
And
zombies and
that's even
enemies
more
can go
frightening, 'cause you're
through
alone
door to
now,
door.
and this monster after you.
Yeah.
And all you have to defend yourself is a stick.
Stick it in its brain and it's dead. It's that
It'd be
easy.
kind of cool. I mean, it'd be kind of cool. Like, well, lickers can only hear you, so
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting if you had like a stealth aspect to it. Like, obviously in the
Like
first
they did
one,
in the
or in
first
the
one.
original, you could still walk around them. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
But if you
you
ran
should-
or stepped on broken
could-
glass, it would
yeah,
hurt 'em.
it'd be kind of fun to up the ante where you have situations where the character is stuck and she has to walk over glass, but she got to do it slowly and all this stuff.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Add a new layer of gameplay to it. Strategy.
Yeah, it'd be really immersive, like
Yeah.
like Last of Us.
So I do think they look good, and I think they look menacing. They're still very difficult, but I guess I really have to get my hands on it to see if it kind of get the same feel as I did with the original. Obviously, it's going to play a little different, but as long as we're not having the Resident Evil 5 where you're just running and gunning and they're not really that big of a deal, which I don't think is going to be the case, then I think it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up. Is there anything else you guys kind of wanted to discuss at all?
I think we talked a lot.
We did talk a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we covered
It's gonna be fun.
everything.
It's gonna
as
be
of
fun
right now.
editing.
I need to see a spark shot. I'm super.
You want to see the spark shot?
I want to see the spark shot.
Gotta be
Oh,
in
hell
it,
yeah.
damn it.
It literally looks like just a big wall plug that somebody put a gun on.
Hell yeah.
I always love hitting Birkin with that thing because it just looked like he was a frying piece of beef.
Yeah. Frying
It did so
piece
much
of bacon.
damage, too.
Birkin bacon.
I'm really
All
curious
right.
about
Birkin
the-
bacon.
the
There we
new
go.
weapon.
So there you
Yeah,
go.
the-
We'll wrap it up with that. The spark shot better be in the Resident Evil 2 remake. Damn it.
Birkin bacon hamburger.
Birkin bacon hamburger. Sounds delicious. We'll start selling them at the roll store.
Only sold in
Big
Raccoon
worth it.
City restaurants.
Yes.
Tax
All
goes.
right. Well, thank you so much, Sean, Robert, and Cliff, for joining us. We
Thanks
really
for having us.
appreciate it, and I'm
Thanks for
sure
having
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, everybody's gonna be really excited to hear, sort of more behind Dave, because that was the first time you guys ever really talked about it. Like you said, you haven't done any podcasts, so thank you very much for coming on. If you guys want to let people know where to follow you on social media in case you're ever working on something that they might be interested in, or if you come back to Resident Evil Arklay and revisit that, where can they follow you? Where can they find updates?
Yeah, you can always message me, follow me on Twitter at my name, at Sean Liebert.
I don't really have a social media at the moment. I'm working on making a new profile, and I will make that known once I do.
Okay.
Gotta get followers. Gotta get those followers, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, my handle on both Twitter and Instagram is just my first and last name, so at Cliff Lorette. And yeah, you can see any updates there.
All right, that'll conclude our episode for today. If you enjoyed this episode of the ROE Podcast and are listening on YouTube, please leave a like. And if you would like more ROE Podcasts, definitely subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please leave us a review and subscribe to be notified when another episode is released. The Residents of Evil is a Patreon-supported show, so if you'd like to help support the channel and unlock some other really cool perks in return, head over to patreon.com/ROE Network. I would like to give a special shout out to our Master of Unlocking Patreon members who sponsored this episode today: Anthony Moreno, Devil, Kendall Gunshot, Proxy One, and Trent Overton. Thank you all so much for watching, and we hope to see you back at the Residents of Evil.